Okay, we are now recording. So, for those that are interested in this webinar that aren't able to join today, or if you want to refer back to this, we will post a recording of this webinar on the Interschool Council YouTube page, and we'll post a link to that to all of the elementary school Facebook groups for all of the fourth graders to join. So again, for those that are looking at this on a recording, this is a webinar talking about transition to middle school. And we have five esteemed fifth grade parents who are going to share their wisdom with us. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and let each of the panelists introduce themselves. And I'll just go based on where you're showing on my screen. So Leith, would you like to go first?
Sure. Hi. Thank you, Sarah. I'm Leith Spear Barton. I have a fifth grader at Blackrock and a first grader at Gladwin. And I'm an early childhood specialist and a graduate student in social work at Bryn Mawr College. Thank you.
Thank you. Brenna, you're up next.
I'm Brenna Carswell. I have my youngest daughter is at Welsh Valley Middle School. My older daughter is going into her senior year at Harriton. Yeah, that's probably the most anybody really wants to or needs to know about me.
What elementary school did your fifth grader come from?
Oh yeah, both of my girls went through Belmont Hills. Love
Great.
Belmont Hills.
Thank you. Danielle?
Hi, everybody. My name is Danielle York. I have a fifth grader at Welsh Valley Middle School, and then I have a first grader at Penguin Elementary School. Um, yeah.
Great. Thank you. Kate?
Hi, I'm Kate Coleman. My fifth grader came from Belmont Hills, and I also have a first grader currently at Belmont Hills.
Great. And Charu?
Yes, I'm Chara Jewett. I have a fifth grader at BC at Ballackinwood and also a seventh grader at BC. And they both went to Marion Elementary before going to BC.
Great. All right. Thank you guys for joining us. So we're going to go ahead and dive in. I did send the panelists questions ahead of time, so they had time to prepare. I always reserve the right to throw in a question, but I'll try not to throw in any surprising questions. So we're going to go ahead and start with what surprised you the most about the transition to middle school? I think we all come in with expectations of what we think it's going to look like, and then there are things we were not expecting. So, what are things that surprise you most about the transition to middle school? And anyone, please feel free to jump in. Just unmute yourself.
One thing that surprised me the most was just at least at BC, and both my kids had the same main teacher, so I have kind of a small pool to pull from there, but was the vast difference in communication from the teachers. I think they leave a lot of it to the students to bring home, and it was like maybe a monthly update, if that, which is not to say that they weren't available if we had questions, but there was no regular, weekly communication like we had personally experienced at Marion in fourth grade and years before that.
Great. I'm seeing a lot of nods. It seems like that was similar experience. Anyone else want to share?
Yeah, that was definitely our experience. And because my older daughter went to Welsh Valley in sixth grade, this was our first experience going to the middle school at fifth grade. So I expected two things. I expected that she was going to be completely overwhelmed and dreading it. She wasn't. She absolutely loved it. She came home the first day and was so thrilled that she got to change classes throughout the day and have different teachers and different experiences throughout the day rather than just sitting in one classroom with one teacher and then her specials. So that was one really happy, surprising thing. But the communication is extremely different, and even the communication from the administration is really different too. It's very need to know, and even then, if you aren't familiar with your child's schedule, which is also a lot to keep track of, different days, different schedules, you're kind of relying on your child to navigate those communications as well to help interpret them. So it did help our family kind of have more discussions and open up the discussions a little bit more because I was just so lost trying to understand what does your day look like? How do I put into context what I'm hearing, what this email from the principal or the assistant principal is saying? And then when do I need to step in and actually ask questions directly to the teachers? Big change.
Thanks.
And to piggyback on what Brenna was saying, and our daughters are not in the same class, but both at Welsh Valley, is I think that anticipated change was actually a blessing in disguise because the independence that I've seen and the self-advocacy I've seen with asking the children to email the teacher about things, and they certainly assist the children in that because I could tell she felt comfortable navigating that, and certainly over the course of the year. But I can also speak on another level that my daughter receives special education services, and I fail to remember Miss Granieri's title, but like essentially her like coordinator sends a weekly email to me to tell me what was going on and kind of the week ahead, not necessarily specific to my daughter, but just at large, what was being addressed. And also reminders, which was very helpful. I know those spirit weeks and all those other things that was very welcome because honestly, since there is so much independence, that she definitely just took over entirely in that realm.
Yeah, speaking to the
I'm
schedule
gonna jump in.
part.
Oh, go ahead.
I
Go
was
ahead, Leith, and then Danielle.
the ABCD schedule was tricky for I think my son understood it quicker than I did, but we went through this calendar and actually like he plays violin or he's in the orchestra, so understanding which days he needed to bring his violin. Those 2 days that are AB days and they have a yellow post-it on them and really marking out the calendar was definitely something new for us.
Can
Also,
you explain what ABC day
yes.
is?
So the way that it works at BlackRock, and I see a bunch of nods here, so hopefully it's across the board, but the year is set up as A, B, C, D days. So you would look at the calendar year for Lower Merion, and each day from the first day of the school year is A, B, C, D. And for me, the way that it helped us organize in our family was putting these yellow post-its on the days for the violin. Those are the biggest change for us. But when I look at the calendar, when we look at the calendar, we can see really quickly what day it is. Like on a C day, he has to bring his sneakers for PE. And so it's on the family, the child to understand which day of the week you're on. And when I was first introduced to this, I thought it might change based on virtual instruction days or snow days, but it stayed consistent the whole year. So that was really helpful. But yeah,
So
adjusting.
it doesn't correlate to days of the week. So it's not like
No,
A day is always Monday.
no.
Okay.
So
And do you
ABC.
find out at the beginning of the year what days are going to be A, B, C, D for the entire year?
The first day for us is an A day. I think it probably is that way across the board. So then you just would count out from that first day,
Okay.
A, B, C, D, and then yeah, for us, I didn't write A, B, C, D on the calendar. I just used those post-its that are the visual marker where I see two yellow and then two clear, and he does too, and that's been really helpful for us. But yeah.
And the HSA provides a calendar for the kids, like a schedule. I'm not sure how many teachers rely on that, but to Leith's point, like that also served as a really good reference for Aubrey to say after a weekend, like, what day is it tomorrow? Do I need sneakers for gym, etc. So, I mean, there's a lot of other things that are in place that the kids can kind of check that. Because I know for myself, going from elementary school where there's a lot of hand holding, but honestly, she caught on to that within a week
Yeah.
or two. Like it was not even on her radar of concern.
It
So.
was more
Right.
for me, I think, than for him. Like he adjusted a lot faster than I did.
Great. Thanks. All right, Danielle.
Yeah. So also you can always look at the school's website. I know at least Welsh Valley, they have it on the school website, like on the homepage, what day it is, because I'm sure a bunch of parents had issues with remembering. But just to add to what Kate was saying earlier, I also have a child with an IEP and is part of the special education program. So I would say the thing that surprised me most is that I was extremely anxious regarding this transition, and he took it in stride, which is surprising. He has autism, so change is never really an easy thing. But they did such a beautiful job of preparing them in fourth grade, and setting them up for success in the transition. So that part was it was a good surprise for sure.
Oh, good. Good. So that kind of is a good transition to one of the other questions, which is what helped your child kind of the most in ensuring that it was that smooth transition? Is there anything you did at the school did ahead of time, or you guys did, or the school did at the beginning of the year that kind of helped make that smooth transition? And I'll let anybody open it up.
I'll go. So I know in past years, and normally I would think by now you would know the date, but they usually do a day that the fifth graders alone can go to middle school before the actual first day of school. It was, I believe, like the Wednesday before or Thursday before school started. And it's just the fifth graders getting on the bus. They run the buses and everything.
Mhm.
So it is a much more like low stress environment. And they're able to go through their schedules, just the fifth graders in the building again. So yeah, and I think that was great. My kid actually didn't even get to do it because we had a summer vacation planned. But it is something they do that is extremely helpful, I think, for some kids who might have a little bit more anxiety about the change.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, I agree. That was a really helpful part. And my daughter didn't even want to go that day. She was like, I don't need to do this. She's like, I'd rather go to tennis. And I was like, no, you're going. Um, but I also was really happy about how much preparation they did the last couple of months of fourth grade too. Like they went over to the middle school and they did a lot of um, the meetings with the teachers, and some of those teachers they remembered being in their building when they were in first or second grade, especially if they had older siblings. And another thing that really helped us, I don't know if this is the case at the other middle schools, but she found a lot of kind of reassurance, I guess, that there's a fifth grade wing. So it's very cohortish in Welsh Valley, and that helped her to not be quite so concerned about the big kids and like the eighth graders and what how much interaction she was going to have with them, because they have a whole wing, so they really didn't they and actually her older friends she never even sees during the day. They only see each other on the bus because there's
Mm,
just a complete separation.
that makes sense. Anyone else want to chime in about anything that helped their kid have a smooth transition?
At least at BC, in addition to that day where they get to take the bus, which I think was great, there is another day where you can go with a parent, and I think it is open to all grades, but I felt like that really helped. My older one is a little more reserved, and my younger one is a little overconfident. So just kind of saying like, we're just gonna go, and like I want to see the building, and like let's walk through, because I could see him being overconfident and then showing up on the first day and getting really overwhelmed by like that change. So just like having a day to kind of like walk through and it's a little casual. That was very helpful in the transition as well, like outside of that one with the bus.
Great. All right, we can move on to the next question then. So some of you have already touched on this, but wanted to give an opportunity in case anyone had anything that they want to add. The one of the big transitions from elementary to middle is changing your classes, right? You're not in one class with the same teacher the whole day. You have different classes and you move and you have different teachers, and just wondering kind of how your children adjusted to managing different classes, different teachers, multiple responsibilities.
I think the pod format really did help. I heard somebody mention that before, but in at BlackRock, it's four groups that rotate amongst one another throughout the day, with a teacher for math and a teacher for ELA, and the homeroom is either one of them. And then beyond those two teachers, it's for specials. I think that was really helpful. For managing classes, though, it was interesting because I had a chance to speak with administration, and having a paper calendar for that part of it was really helpful for all the students. So at BlackRock, at least they print out a monthly calendar, and that's where assignments go. So yeah.
Great.
I also just wanted to mention, oh my gosh, it just went right out of my head. Yeah, it just went
Someone
right
else
out of my
chime
head.
in so
I'll
she can
chime
think
in.
about what she was going to say. Go ahead, Kate.
I'll jump in really quick because I personally, to be honest, I reviewed all the questions with my daughter because there's an element of what we see as a parent versus, what is your perspective on what we're going to be talking about? And none of her answers ended up surprising me other than saying, why didn't you ask me this at the beginning of the year? But anyway. But truly, I think my biggest surprise was how quickly she adjusted. I think she felt so comfortable. And I think Brenna brought it up earlier is her big takeaway after the first week, like, how was it? What's going on? She said, we don't have to walk in a line anymore, and it's like those little things that you realize that they're still like younger kids, but it was just really special that the autonomy is there. They feel that. I think that gives them some confidence. And again, the teacher support, even though they may not be telling you every day what's going on, whenever she reached out about anything, it was really, really nice. Plus, I don't think anybody else mentioned this. And again, I'm unfamiliar with the other schools, but there's also an I&E portion of their day that serves almost like study hall. And so sometimes you're going there if you need extra support, or it's like, hey, I don't have any classes with my friend. Let's meet up in the library, and they'll get work done. So there really has been relatively light homework if she's diligent within that sector, which personally I find great because she is, following up on things that she needs help with. But at the end of the day, she's not like burdened coming home.
Right, right.
I
Go
remembered.
ahead, Brenna, you got
I remembered. But thank you, Kate, for also triggering the memory. So I can echo almost word for word everything that Kate just said. That part has been great. The part that has kind of surprised me, but it shouldn't have, is she's been, this is kind of the first time that these kids are having real tests and real quizzes. And they're realizing very quickly that this is not elementary school anymore. And there is a little bit of kind of guidance from the teachers on how to approach studying, and but it's not a whole lot. And so we've had a couple of days where there's 2 or 3 tests in the same day, and she's very stressed about that. And it's like, well, this is part of middle school. This is what moving up in grades comes with, right? And just having that extra discussion at home. I don't I don't remember needing that with my older daughter. So that was something that sort of caught me off guard. But I also, that I&E part of the day has been so helpful because she is getting her homework done, a lot of it done in that time period. But she's also finding that she can go and ask for help when she's feeling overwhelmed with having multiple tests in one day. it's kind of like that break where she can study and then ask for some support if she needs it.
Great. Anyone else want to add to the answer to the question of how your kid adjusted to managing multiple teachers, classes, responsibilities?
Yeah, I just wanted to add a quick thing. I thought the teachers actually did a good job of like telling them how to organize notes and like having binders and dividers and notebooks and like kind of setting them up for success. I mean, obviously it's on the kids to keep that organized and like have the things at school and bring them home and do the homework and all that. But I think they did do a good job like knowing that it's coming from elementary school to like set them up for at least some good study habits or organizational habits in fifth grade.
Great. Danielle, I saw you want to chime in.
Yeah, sure. So this is just for anyone who has a kid who might be a little neurospicy, like autistic, ADHD. Having the different classrooms is intimidating, but at the same time, it means they get a movement break every like 30 to 40 minutes. So for some kids, it actually is kind of regulating and helpful. So, I
That makes
mean,
sense.
the positive.
That makes sense. That makes sense. I'm going to throw out a question that I didn't send you earlier, but I hope that's okay. Sorry, hold on. Alexa, off. Sorry. It's reminding me it's my kid's bedtime. Sorry about that. You guys are talking about great things. My guess is it was not all rainbows and butterflies. So, were there any bumps in the road along the way? Any struggles they had? And now that you've been through that, anything like parents could do to get ahead of that before it happens, or ways to kind of be prepared for some of those bumps in the road?
Well, Sarah's heard a lot of our bumps in the road, which is probably why she invited me to speak on this panel. But there were a couple of things that I wasn't. So when we had done the parent meeting and hearing the middle school sort of present to us about this transition, our understanding was that lunchtime was sort of the opportunity for the kids who were not who had friends outside of their cohort to kind of switch it up and be able to sit with those friends and catch up. And we found out pretty well into the school year that that was not the case, and that they're not really allowed to move out of their assigned tables or the area that they're coming into the lunchroom with. And that was really tough because there was a group that was just not, they don't always get along, and they're not always the nicest to each other. And it was tough because they were already in classes together pretty much throughout the day, and then the one break should have been lunchtime, and that didn't happen. And I did reach out to the guidance counselors at Welsh Valley have been fantastic, and they're very quick to respond and try to address issues. Um, it wasn't entirely addressed, but we found a sort of middle ground. But that was a really tough part for my daughter to just feeling that getting that opportunity to just switch it up outside of the cohort. The other thing that was really not smooth, and I continue to bring this up with the school. Late buses are a whole new thing to this age group. If they have anything after school, if there's play rehearsal or sports, they're taking a late bus. That late bus should be labeled. It's not always labeled. And if you do have a neurospicy kid like mine, that they do require a little bit of extra support, especially when they're easily overwhelmed or stressed and they can't find the right bus. And I think sometimes when it's teachers that don't know your kid, they're not going to respond in a way where they know your kid. And we had to sort of teach Lydia how to advocate for herself and be able to speak up and say, I'm having trouble finding my bus. No, I don't want to get on this bus because the last time I got on this bus, I ended up in Ardmore and my mom had to come and pick me up over in Ardmore. So Yeah, that was not a fun day to get that phone call at work. So there were things like that that just, had we known ahead of time that the late bus was something that wasn't going to be a handheld experience for first time fifth graders, I think I would have had a very different approach to her taking a late bus, or I probably would have just gone and picked her up myself until she was feeling confident and ready to navigate that system herself. Unfortunately for us, it ended up that she dropped out of her after school program because she just felt like it was just too risky and too overwhelming to try and navigate that system. But I'm hopeful for next year. So just something to keep in mind, though.
That's really, really good to know. That's a big change to middle school is the kind of the late bus system. Thanks. Anyone else want to talk about bumps and in hindsight, how parents could get ahead of it?
I would say so. The one thing is the start time is shockingly earlier than elementary school. And unfortunately, our son decided he wanted to start sleeping in that summer. So I would say getting ahead of that, like to kind of ease them in, because it comes early and the bus comes and they're barely awake. So that was a big thing. Also, and something that it takes a while to get used to also would be I had it, the early bus. Oh, and as much as he had a great transition, I would say around like October-ish, November-ish, it was kind of like, oh wait, like this is for real. So there was a little bit of an issue around that time. So just, I don't know, giving them some grace. But yeah, the early start
Thanks.
time.
My daughter's only in kindergarten and I'm already dreading that like big jump in start time from elementary school to middle school. Anyone else? Okay. Next question. Is there
Sarah,
anything? Oh,
there's
go
a
ahead.
there's a question in the chat
Yeah, we're
about
just going to leave
lunch.
the
Okay.
questions for the
Okay.
end during Q&A. Yeah. Thanks so much for making sure I saw it. Um, is there anything that hasn't come up yet that you know now that you wish you would have known a year ago? Thinking back to where all these parents are in their journey, getting ready to end fourth grade, heading into middle school. Is there anything that hasn't come up yet that you know now you wish you knew then?
I'll jump in, even
Great.
if it's brief, to say that, trust the process a little bit. I think the school did such a nice job inviting us early, asking questions, introducing themselves. So it is a familiar name, at least if you had to email. And I felt like when there were issues that arose, whether there was some confusion in my daughter's schedule, based on the specials, just people explaining it to us and clarifying things because there's certain classwork that is all year and then the specials are quarterly, and then if there's special education courses that can sometimes affect the opportunity just simply because of timing. And so I felt like they really were very patient with me when I didn't understand that she couldn't have art. And really going back to what we were saying before, the kids are all in this together, learning this new thing. And although when they have to go to the language wing in Welsh Valley, they're near the older kids don't care. It's like they're not even on their awareness. It's thankfully never been an issue, but it's beautiful because the kids kind of all met each other from the different schools a little bit. And I think that that was really a nice thing for the kids to kind of work together to kind of sort out what their year would look like. And I think, there were bumps, of course, but I think overall I was pleasantly surprised.
Great. And we can kind of tie this question in with the last one before we open it up for Q&A from the audience. And there's already been some questions in the chat, and I'm going to kind of ask each one of you to answer this question, if that's okay. What advice do you have to current fourth grade parents? Leith, would you mind starting?
Sure. I also wanted to say something about just being surprised by the computer use, the Chromebook use. By my son's estimation, it's 70% of his day. So that was something that was really surprising for me going back to that. And we have opted out of bringing it home, which is an option for all families. And so that would just be a conversation with your teacher. But
Thanks for that.
yeah, and for fourth grade families, what I wanted to say actually earlier is just as far as this pod, and you're suddenly in a group with 25 and then maybe 100 children, at least in the BlackRock experience. I did a little outreach before school started to try to identify at least one friend who was in the pod, and that was really helpful. So as much as you're able to do that, just knowing one familiar face was
Yeah.
tremendously helpful for my child. And other than that, just telling your child can do it, just their building their confidence and letting them know that they can, as we've heard in this group from all the other parents. So thanks.
Thanks. And while you're talking, I wanted you had put in the chat that something that someone else said was not your experience at BlackRock.
Yeah,
Can you explain what you were referring to?
I was referring to the lunchroom. I don't know if that's a
Oh,
Welsh Valley specific. I'm sure there are quite a few things that are specific to each school, but my son has been able to sit wherever he wants. I think that as far as lunch goes, a frustration for him has been that there isn't a playground. There's an inner courtyard area, but it's a very different experience than running out onto the playground. So that's required a different kind of navigation. There are ball games and things like that, but it's a different
gotcha.
dynamic.
Okay.
But he can sit with whoever he wants. So
I'll
Thanks.
just chime in for the BC experience too. I found it to be different for different grades, and sometimes there's a free seat Friday. Um, it's kind of been all over the place. Sometimes they have to sit with their teams because there was bad behavior in the lunchroom. So I don't know. I think it kind of runs the gamut, and it's just different school to school, it sounds like.
Right. Thanks. Okay, Danielle, I'm going to ask you to go next with advice you have for our current fourth grade parents.
I think I would just say echo what Kate had said and trusting the process. And they've obviously been doing this a lot longer than me. So that, and it will pay back in dividends, like the independence and the ability, like that they are able to do things on their own. It really brings a lot to the kids in self-esteem and overall well-being.
Right. Thanks. Cheryl?
Yeah, I would say, like in advocacy, don't be afraid to advocate for your kid and what's right for your kid. If something is not working, you can send those emails and like get it to work for you. I feel like in elementary school it was kind of like this is the day and this is what you do and everybody does it. And if like if you need a change, if things aren't working, like it's okay to advocate for your child. But the on the other side in middle school, I've tried to encourage my kids to advocate for themselves, and that has really worked out well for them. So just starting that conversation like before school or in those first, weeks or months to say, hey, if you have a question on a grade that you didn't like, or it looks like an assignment is missing, but you think you turned it in, like it's your job to email the teacher about that. It's no longer my job to do that. I mean, I would get involved if it was being unresolved, but I think teachers are very responsive to students. And so just setting up that conversation and that, independence for them to take ownership with the transition to middle school.
Thanks. Brenna, advice for parents?
It's funny. I was actually going to say something very similar. It's a really good opportunity to step back and let them take the wheel a little bit more. But it is a fine balance, right? I mean, so I'll also clarify that the lunch situation is from what I was told when this issue came up, it was that wherever you walk in and whomever you walk in with, that's where you're sitting. So there's no changing seats. There's no moving around. So if you are sitting with people that you come in with who were in your cohort, that's it. You're not switching around. You're not moving to another seat, even if you need to. So I had
Sounds
to
like
take a
lunch is
step
handled very differently at the different
very
schools.
differently. Yeah, very differently. And even from what the guidance counselor said to me was different than what I had heard from other parents and from what my daughter was telling me. So I think it's a very that whole experience, it's amazing to see the social structures, and that was a good opportunity for me to say, let's talk. I'd like to hear how you want to handle this, but I'm not going to be the one to get involved here. Like I will reach out, I will find out, what support I can provide for you, but at the end of the day, it's you at school, and you've got to be able to speak to this and to handle it. And I know that's really intimidating, and I know adults that have a really difficult time doing this even today, but it's been a good opportunity for her to self advocate and for her to figure out um, how she wants to move through middle school. Do you want to stay with the same friends? The friend group thing changes so dramatically, especially with girls. That's been a wild part of this whole thing too, and learning that it's not my job to step in every time. It's not my job to fix all of these things. They have to go through some of this. It's part of their learning process too. But I also would say if you see something going on that you're not comfortable with, reach out. The teachers have been phenomenal. The teachers have been so responsive, and so have the guidance counselors. And so whenever I've had a concern, I've never been pushed away. I've never been dismissed. It's always been met with, how can we help? What can we do? I
Right.
will also agree that the Chromebook usage is way more than I anticipated and expected. She's also able to access things that I did not think that she was going to be able to access. Somehow I caught her watching Netflix on her Chromebook, which we had a major discussion about that. There were all these other websites that she was able to access. And so it's been concerning because at this age they don't understand really how all of that works, and so if they're given access that I don't give at home, but now all of a sudden they have that access at school, it's been a new point of discussion in our household, and I think that it's an important one that we're having as a district too.
Thanks for that, Brenna. All right, Kate, last but not least,
I
advice for
I
parents.
think it's all been said, but there's no stupid questions. And truly, talk. Oh, that maybe is the one piece. Join your school's Facebook page if that does it for you, because there are updates to things like for ISC and other elements like events for the kids. Like there's a fifth grade dance, that can just be a good touch point, or even having a question like what happened at school, or is there spirit day? I think that's been like a good quick reference rather than looking through the whole like school website.
Right. Fifth grade dance. Oh my God, that's so cute. It's so exciting. Their first dance.
So cute.
All right, we are going to move on to Q&A from the audience. So people have been putting lots of questions in the chat. One that I think's been answered is, does the LUS change in higher grades, or do they consistently stay with their cohort? Sounds like that varies school to school and grade to grade. So I think you'd have to find out what the situation is in your school. Next question. My rising fifth grader wants to know, how quick do the kids get used to getting around the bigger school? Anyone want to take that?
I will say, in my experience, much faster than I would have assumed. I was very nervous for both of my kids for different reasons, but I'd say within the first week at least, they were just very comfortable. I think they kind of all do it together. Every class, I think my kids have had someone going to the next class. And so they kind of band together and figure it out.
Right.
I did say to both of my kids, just to maybe empower them a little, like, if you're lost, poke your head into the library, go to the office, put your head, like step into a classroom and just ask someone to direct you where to go. Like don't get overwhelmed. Like just, advocate for yourself in that way. So surprisingly very quickly, but also just putting that in their head to say like you're not alone. There is always an adult around to help you. Definitely helped them.
Yeah. This next question I think is for you, Leith. It has to do with you said you opted out of your child bringing the Chromebook home. So the question from Eileen is it an issue with doing homework at home if you opt out of bringing the Chromebook home? If around 70% of their schoolwork is done on the Chromebook, I wonder how much of their homework needs to be done electronically. It will be interesting to see what comes out of the screens down, pencils up in the district. Can you speak to
I,
that?
yeah, so it's not an accommodation, but it's not so dissimilar from an accommodation. It is available to all families. They can just tick the I don't want the Chromebook to go home. So it's available to everyone in at the middle school level. But what it doesn't involve is it's a different kind of homework. So if an assignment is online, then that's something that might be done in I&E or it's sent home in paper. But it is a conversation with the teachers. My son's teachers know that he doesn't bring the Chromebook home. So even if it's a different circumstance for whatever the assignment is, but there have been instances where he's needed a little extra time to be able to finish it at school or to have a paper version, and they work with him on that.
Thank you.
And if I can follow up,
Yeah.
this hasn't really been an issue in our home. I don't know the volume of Chromebook use, but certainly it's charged and goes. But we kind of set up very kind of specific things. When she comes home, it gets charged by our front door so she doesn't forget it, or I don't forget to send it. But also, it's not going generally in her room, and she only has access if there is something on homework or she has to check her email. So it's kind of one of those just general screen time rules. And I know that doesn't work for everybody, but I think that was something we established from the get-go because she does have an iPad and things, but we generally kind of watch that. So maybe setting it up depending on your feelings with it, but it hasn't really been an issue at home again, because we were with that from the very beginning. And so it was kind of like she didn't know any different.
Great. Okay. Thank you.
Would say that
Yeah, go ahead, Lee.
it's the same for my son who opted out from the beginning. Whatever choice is individual, but I think that it's been easier for him because that's just what he's known from the beginning versus some families switching midway to opting out. It's been a different, like they've had to adjust in a different way. So wherever you begin as you wish to proceed, however it is, I think is a great model.
Thanks. Next question, Katie. Oh, do you want to add, Danielle?
I just wanted to add that
Yeah, go ahead.
My son doesn't bring it home, but you have to bring it home in order to do virtual days. So everything on virtual days, like the Chromebook comes home, and that was the first experience where I got to see everything that is happening. So it is a little overwhelming, but just so the parents know that they will send it home those days.
Even if you don't
Even if you opt out, yeah, they have to. Mm-hmm.
Okay, thanks. Question from Katie. How do we know who's in their pod? Does that don't only come from your child? They're the ones that tell you?
So it's also, oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Kate.
It's your homeroom teacher. It's basic, they call it a team. So she, on her teacher assignment in August, was assigned to Miss Pizik, but it kind of oh my gosh, I'm blanking on her teacher's name. Oh my gosh. But essentially, then they sent an email maybe a week later to say, welcome to Team D. I'm going to be teaching science and math. She's going to, we didn't necessarily know the other students. That was word of mouth with other parents that we knew. But again, Facebook served as a resource. And again, just word of mouth, seeing parents around, we were able to find a few people that we knew.
Okay, thanks. Charu, were you trying to chime in there?
You're just going to say exactly the same thing. I think it was really just from they show up on the first day. Either they talk to friends ahead of time or they show up on the first day and they see who's in their class. There wasn't really anything before that to find out the other students.
And I was surprised that there is a difference between which teacher's name is first. So at least at Blackrock, it's a different homeroom depending on whose name is first in that pod.
Okay. Another pod question. Are we able to request for certain kid to be in your pod? Or a certain kid to not be in your kid's pod, I'll add. Anyone know?
I think that's a school district policy. I know in elementary school, the principal always sends, you can request someone you don't want your child to be in the class with. But as far as I know, I don't know anyone who's ever requested since, but I'd imagine that's probably school district wide.
Thanks. A question from Scott, do they get letter grades in middle school?
Not in fifth grade.
Not in fifth grade.
Fifth grade, I think you're still on the 1 to 4. I can't remember if it's 1 to 3 or 1 to 4. Sixth grade onwards, there are letter grades.
Great. This is back to a Chromebook question. Have you heard about how much children are able to get on sites that are non-educational with this amount of screen time during the day? And has it been easy to opt out for home devices?
I'll say it's easy to opt out of bringing the device home. You just tick, or I guess don't tick the box where it's the device agreement, like the use agreement that's kind of insurance for bringing it home. So you'll have
Goes out at the beginning of the year for
at
all
the beginning
parents.
of the year that there are a few forms that you need to sign, and that's one of them. And you can tick the box, I don't want it to come home. And the teacher may ask you, are you sure? And for our family, we were sure. And so they worked with us from the beginning. But as far as what they can access, it's really surprising. They can get anywhere by copying and pasting a Google link. And there are like fake proxy servers. I mean, it's kind of a wild issue that I think somebody copy and pasted a news article, but the barriers aren't quite there for them to be really safe, which is one of the reasons why my family's opted to just have it at school. And we've even worked with the administration to have an instructional use only. So it's even just a little bit less of a distraction for my child. So I don't know if anybody else wants to speak to that, but.
Okay. This next question, I'm going to ask from each school because I think the answer to this might vary per school. The main communication you guys have talked about is like joining the Facebook page, but there are some people that don't have Facebook. And I appreciate those of you on the panel that have been answering in the chat, but since not everybody's able to listen to you and look at the chat, I'm going to have the question still said. Are there communications from the school or communications they should follow or be a part of outside of Facebook for those that don't have social media? So can one of the people from Welsh Valley answer what options there are for Welsh Valley?
I think the easiest way is to join the HSA, which they certainly want the parents' support and participation. And they reach out, I believe there's a table set up when you go with your child in the late summer or whenever that walkthrough is. And they definitely send emails throughout. So it's pretty evident if you're interested.
Great. Charu, anything unique about Ballard Kinwood you want to mention?
Yeah, the principal sends out a weekly newsletter, and we also get a weekly nightly news, which is put out from the HSA with events coming up, Spirit Weeks, merch
And that
sales.
comes through email also?
Email, yeah, those are just email. Actually, I will say our Facebook group at BC isn't super active. People do post questions on occasion about things. Sometimes there's something about sports, on there, but I would say I get majority of my information from the principal's weekly email and from the HSA nightly news.
Thanks. Leaf? Anything specific about BlackRock?
For us, the email comes from the teacher or the teacher pod for weekly updates. And then there's the weekly email that I think comes on Thursday. That's more like general news for the school. Yeah.
Great. Thank you. This is a kind of logistical thing. There were two of these. One, do you know when the kids get their schedules for fifth grade? Do you remember when you got it last year?
End of
Yeah, it
summer,
was,
you get your
yeah,
teacher assignment.
When you got the teacher
yes,
assignment,
this,
so end of summer, like the
exactly.
last week,
Yeah.
the week
The
before.
same
So it's
time the
very
rest of the
late.
district is getting their announcements or their teacher assignments, you'll get your child's too.
Great. One question, so some people send it to me one-on-one. I'm a little worried about lunchtime at 10:30 a.m. How are kids going through the day after having lunch at that time?
It is early, but they also start early. So it probably doesn't feel like, probably feels like noon to us if we're, eating, well, if we were eating breakfast later. There are snack times, at least at BC. So I know my kids eat during I&E if they want to. They have both told me that their teachers don't really want them eating in other classes, but I don't know if that's true everywhere or for all teachers. But that I&E period starts around 2 o'clock, so it hasn't really been a problem, at least for my kids.
Okay. Anyone else want to talk about lunch?
I'll
No?
just say that it wasn't the time, the 10:30, that's the problem. It's getting from, well, it's number one, it's a 20-minute lunch period. It is quick. And if your kid is buying lunch, that time period feels even more short. But it's getting from 11 straight through to when they get home at 3:30, 4:30. So I pack snacks. I pack a lot of snacks because I&E is really the only time that she can have a snack because her teachers also don't allow them to eat in class, which is understandable. And you're not allowed to eat on the bus either, which is also understandable. So she's kind of like grabbing something really quick while she's walking in the hallway to catch the bus, or she's grabbing a snack in I&E. But that's a long period, a long time period for them, and they've been up since that early morning. So we also noticed a difference in dinner time too. Like dinner time, she is hungry. So we have moved dinner time up. We're now eating at like 5:30 in the afternoon because, it's a much earlier day. Our whole family has shifted our day earlier. So just be prepared for your refrigerators to shift a little bit more once your middle schooler starts.
The only caveat I would like to add in speaking to an eighth grade family is that they are the first to eat, though. So if they like what is being served at school, they have plenty. Whereas as the day goes on, I think it ends up being an issue of, oh, the entree is gone. But that's for all of us to worry about in the about. But
I've heard eighth graders
the
complain
silver
that there's not
lining.
enough sushi left.
Exactly.
How has the experience been with cell phones for fifth graders? For those of you whose kids do or don't have cell phones, my son doesn't have a cell phone, and I'm trying to hold off as long as possible. He currently has a Gab watch, and it only does text or voice notes and phone calls, but it's an issue sometimes with his friends that have phones and unsupervised internet access, TikTok accounts, etc.
So our family, my fifth grader does not have a cell phone, but this is actually an issue even in elementary school. So I've had my first grader tell me about phones on the bus. I would say I think it's something that district wide, I know they have the off and away policy, I think it is. And I think teachers do the best job they can, but again, I think it's something that is coming up in discussion and appropriately so.
We
Anyone
don't.
else?
Yeah, so my daughter, we opted for an Apple Watch, partly because I wanted to be able to lock it down and I didn't want her having a cell phone. But I was especially happy that she had it when we had that bus issue where she got on the wrong late bus and ended up in Ardmore. And I used the GPS on her Apple Watch to track her and figure out where I needed to go and pick her up. Another thing that I didn't bring up earlier, after school activities are not, from what I understand, they're not allowed to have parent phone numbers. This was the case for the drama club after school. And there was a day where there was a miscommunication. The late bus wasn't an option, and nobody could reach me because her watch had died and nobody had my phone number. And they ended up having to call another teacher who had access to my emergency contact in order to get to me. It was kind of a mess and kind of shocking, but it also made me realize how important it was to have some level of communication, some way to communicate with her, because the school won't always be able to communicate with us. So we don't want her having a cell phone, but the watch gave us another avenue where we could still have control, lock it down, have the GPS, have the one-way texting or two-way texting, and still be able to communicate with her in an emergency.
Thanks.
My experience, I
Drew?
just want to say, same as Brenna, my fifth grader does not have a phone. He does have an Apple Watch. He doesn't have a lot of friends with phones. I don't know if that's sort of shifting with this wait till eighth. So friend wise or social wise, I don't think it's been a problem for him as a fifth grader to not have a phone.
Okay, that's good to know. Next question is about buses. The school buses for Penn Valley currently sit the kids separately by grade. Kindergartners are in the front and fourth graders are on the back. Do the school buses for Welsh Valley, but I'll let others answer too if it's different, sit the kids separately by grade? I'm seeing no's.
I mean, maybe it's different by bus, but for my son's bus, yeah, the fifth graders are kind of towards the front and the eighth graders are kind of towards the back. So I don't think there are any rules about it, but that just seems to be the natural
Okay.
order, at least for his bus.
But it seems like some others, they don't. So it might be bus by bus specific. Sounds like
It's
not
wherever
consistent.
you can find a seat, and most of them are sitting with their friends, which happen to be in the same grades. But my
Right.
daughter has a couple of friends who are in other grades, and she goes and sits with them. So sometimes she's sitting with a seventh grader or sixth grader, but
Right.
it's pretty much on some of these buses, it's so crowded that it's like you need to get on the bus and you need to sit down as soon as you find a seat. So there's no assigned seating per
Okay.
se.
Great. Someone asks, can kids bring snacks? It sounds like yes, everyone, the kids can bring snacks. Speak now if that's not the case. Okay. And I
We should definitely
have,
bring snacks. We should underscore that. That's one of the things that the teachers at the beginning of the year, they said, I feel so bad if, they don't have a snack for the day because it's a long afternoon. So
yeah. If you take
underscore
nothing away from this webinar,
snacks.
you take away snacks, snacks, snacks. All right. One person says, so they have 20 minutes to eat and 20 minutes of recess. That's so not enough for these young kids. That's more, I think, a comment than a question. Another person's comment was about a kid having a Gab watch and did some good research. So I think that's all the questions that have come in. So I'll let the panel one last opportunity if there's anything that you just thought of that you wanted to share before we wrap up. All right. Thank you so much to Brenna and Leith and Danielle and Kate and True. Thank you so much. Thank you to everybody who participated and joined on. Again, we are recording this. So if you know another parent that's interested and wasn't able to join, we will be posting on the ISC, the Interschool Council Facebook group, and on the Facebook groups of the elementary schools, the link to join or to get the recording. It'll be posted on the Interschool Council's YouTube page. For those that do not have Facebook, I am putting my email in the chat. Feel free to email me if you want a link to the recording once it's available, and I'll make sure that you get it for those that don't have social. And with that, thank you very much, everyone. And you guys have a good night and good luck to your kids next year.
Good night.